Love stories often capture the world's attention, but few have sparked as much fascination, debate, and cultural reflection as the engagement of NFL star Travis Kelce and global music icon Taylor Swift. What began as whispers of romance, a pop star spotted in the stadium suites, a football champion attending a concert, quickly escalated into one of the most talked about celebrity unions of the decade. The engagement was not just a personal milestone, it became a public spectacle, dissected in headlines, memes, podcasts, and endless social media threads. It was a story filled with passion, scrutiny, backlash, and ultimately, resilience. A story that touched on love, but also unearthed questions about race, loyalty, fame, and timing. Because this is not just the tale of an engagement ring, it is a portrait of how modern love unfolds under the blinding light of fame, how private decisions become public debates, and how two people, already icons in their own right, found themselves at the center of a cultural storm. Before the engagement, before the headlines, Travis Kelce was already a household name in the world of football. For over a decade, he had dominated the field as one of the NFL's most reliable and charismatic tight ends. His career with the Kansas City Chiefs cemented him as not only a winner, but also an entertainer, a player whose presence could change the rhythm of a game. But Travis's story was never just about touchdowns and trophies. It was about resilience. Born in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, he grew up with a love for sports that was matched only by his competitive spirit. Alongside his brother Jason Kelce, who would go on to become a star in his own right with the Philadelphia Eagles, Travis learned the value of grit, teamwork, and relentless drive. He faced setbacks, injuries, doubts, even moments when his career could have derailed. Yet each obstacle became part of the larger narrative, the rise of a man who would not be denied. From a small-town athlete to a global superstar, Travis Kelce's journey is one of growth, perseverance, and the pursuit of excellence. And yet, for all his triumphs on the field, his personal life was often what fascinated the public most. His relationships became fodder for gossip blogs and fan debates, with one name standing out above the rest: Kayla Nicole. For years, Kayla wasn't just Travis's girlfriend, she was part of his story. A model and fitness influencer, she was seen as loyal, stylish, and devoted. She stood by him through the highs and lows, supporting him during tough seasons and celebrating his victories. For many fans, she symbolized stability, the woman beside the man. When their relationship ended, it didn't just leave an emotional gap, it left questions hanging in the air. Why didn't it work? Was it timing, incompatibility, or something deeper? And more importantly, what would Travis's next chapter look like? No one could have predicted that the answer would involve Taylor Swift, and that their love story would ignite debates far beyond the realm of sports and music. When whispers first linked Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, it sounded almost like a tabloid fantasy. Too strange, too unexpected, too good to be true. On one side stood Taylor, the songwriter who had defined a generation with her ability to turn heartbreak into universal anthems. On the other stood Travis, the football champion whose presence on the field combined brute strength with undeniable charisma. They came from different worlds. Hers was built on music, lyrics, and stages illuminated by glittering lights. His was forged in stadiums where sweat, strategy, and grit reigned supreme. And yet, somehow, the idea of them together captured people's imaginations instantly. At first, there was skepticism. Could a pop icon and an NFL star truly blend their lives? Was this a PR stunt, a fling, or the beginning of something deeper? But as sightings multiplied, the skepticism gave way to fascination. Taylor was spotted at Chiefs games, sitting in the suites, cheering in her signature red lipstick and casual yet chic outfits. Cameras panned to her constantly, catching moments of her laughing with Travis's family, clapping during big plays, or whispering something to friends seated beside her. These weren't just appearances, they were signals that she wasn't hiding, that she was invested. Meanwhile, Travis crossed into Taylor's world. He showed up at her concerts, not as a distant celebrity guest, but as a genuine supporter, blending in with the crowd, singing along, and proudly wearing his love on his sleeve. It wasn't forced. It wasn't staged. Fans could sense authenticity in the way he looked at her, in the way she smiled back. This blending of worlds was seismic. Two empires collided, the NFL fandom and the Swifties. Suddenly, people who had never watched a football game were learning about Travis's stats, while lifelong football fans found themselves streaming Taylor's latest album. It was an unlikely cultural crossover, but it worked, because their chemistry made it believable. Still, with visibility came scrutiny. Every gesture became a headline. Every silence was interpreted as a hidden message. Analysts on sports shows debated how the relationship might affect Travis's performance on the field. Gossip bloggers speculated about whether Taylor would turn this love story into her next big album. Fans studied their body language, searching for proof of love, doubts, or anything in between. The romance was no longer theirs alone. It belonged to the world, to the millions who projected their hopes, fears, and expectations onto two people navigating something deeply personal. And yet, despite the noise, one truth stood out. They looked happy, not performative, not guarded, but genuinely happy. And in an age when celebrity relationships often feel like carefully managed narratives, that authenticity made their love story all the more captivating. The whispers and speculation had been building for months, but nothing could have prepared the world for the sheer force of what happened when Travis Kelce finally proposed to Taylor Swift. It wasn't just a relationship milestone. It was a cultural earthquake. The engagement news broke in the way modern fairy tales often do, not through an official press release, but through an explosion of social media reactions. Within minutes of the first photograph surfacing, Taylor's hand adorned with a dazzling ring, Travis beaming beside her, timelines across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and beyond erupted. Hashtags like Honotsa Trailer Engaged and Honog Swift Kelce forever trended worldwide within hours. News outlets scrambled to cover the story, each one competing for the most poetic headline. Entertainment blogs dissected the size, cut, and symbolism of the ring. Fashion editors speculated about which designer Taylor might choose for her eventual wedding dress. Sports analysts joked, half seriously, about whether Travis's performance on the field would be supercharged by love. But underneath the surface-level frenzy, the moment carried a weight far greater than celebrity. Spectacle. For millions of fans, it felt like watching two separate worlds, music and sports, officially fuse into one love story. It was the kind of cross-cultural union that doesn't just dominate headlines for a day, but reshapes conversations for months, even years. For Taylor's fans, the engagement was seen as the culmination of her long, public journey through love and heartbreak. They had watched her grow from a teenage country singer penning songs about first crushes, to a pop powerhouse navigating public breakups, to a woman who had finally, it seemed, found stability. The proposal symbolized not just romance, but resilience, a promise that fairy tale endings are possible, even after years of public scrutiny. For Travis's supporters, the moment was equally powerful. Here was their star tight end, a man known for his dominance on the field, embracing vulnerability in front of the world. Proposing wasn't about strength or statistics. It was about love, and in that instant, Travis transformed from an NFL icon into a man in love, more relatable, more human than ever. Yet not everyone reacted with joy. As the engagement photos spread, so too did waves of unease, doubt, and criticism. Comment sections filled with questions. Why now? Why her? What about Kayla Nicole? Some felt the move was rushed. Others claimed it was calculated, while others still brought up Travis's past relationships, using them as a lens to critique his decision. The proposal was no longer just a private celebration between two people. It had become a public referendum, a mirror reflecting the world's divided feelings about love, loyalty, timing, and identity. Still, for all the backlash, the undeniable truth was this: the engagement made people feel something. Whether it was joy, anger, hope, or bitterness, it proved that love stories, especially those played out in the spotlight, carry the power to ignite collective emotion in ways few other events can. No sooner had the celebratory headlines emerged than the ghosts of the past came rushing back. While some fans were busy creating edits of Taylor and Travis set to romantic ballads, others began digging into his history, resurrecting old photos, interviews, and above all, the memory of his most significant past relationship, Kayla Nicole. Kayla wasn't just an ex. For years, she had been woven into the very fabric of Travis's life, a respected media personality, fitness influencer, an outspoken woman in her own right. She had stood beside him long before the spotlight of a global power couple. Their love had been visible, their breakups and reconciliations public, their bond seemingly unshakable until it wasn't. The engagement to Taylor reignited painful debates. Many voices, especially within Black communities, pointed to a pattern they felt was all too familiar. He dated Black women for years, but when it came time to settle down, he chose someone else. This wasn't just about Travis and Kayla anymore. It was about a history of Black women being celebrated privately but overlooked publicly. Twitter threads and podcasts filled with analysis. Some commentators connected the engagement to broader social issues, pointing out how society often fetishizes Black women while denying them recognition as wife material. Others argued that the story was less about race and more about timing, that Travis had simply grown into the man he needed to be at this moment, and Taylor happened to be there. But the tension didn't stop. On Instagram, users left comments under Kayla's posts, either urging her to speak her truth or praising her silence. Every emoji, every caption was dissected as though it carried hidden meaning. When she uploaded a workout video with the pointed caption about having a back that says "stop playing with me," it was instantly turned into a viral cultural statement. To her fans, it was empowerment. To critics, it was shade. The irony was painful. Kayla never explicitly mentioned Travis or Taylor, yet she was trapped in the narrative. The public projected their feelings onto her: grief, strength, pettiness, resilience, regardless of what she actually intended. Meanwhile, defenders of Travis pushed back against the backlash. They reminded critics that relationships don't always end in marriage, that choosing a partner is personal, not political. Some went further, accusing people of weaponizing race against a love story that should simply be celebrated. The result was a cultural tug-of-war, with Travis and Taylor's engagement at the center. On one side stood those who saw it as a betrayal of loyalty and identity. On the other side were those who viewed it as the natural evolution of love. This clash revealed something deeper: how celebrity relationships act as mirrors for our own unresolved experiences. For some, Travis's decision reopened personal wounds of being overlooked or undervalued. For others, it affirmed the idea that timing and growth matter more than history. In the end, the backlash wasn't just about who Travis loved. It was about what people believed his choice represented: loyalty, race, validation, betrayal, or simply the unpredictability of the human heart. As the debates raged on, one theme kept rising above the noise: timing. For critics, it was easy to frame the engagement as a rejection of the past. But for many others, the explanation was simpler, even universal. Travis Kelce was finally ready, and readiness, more than love, loyalty, or circumstance, often decides the course of relationships. This wasn't just speculation. Friends close to Travis had hinted in interviews that during his years with Kayla, football was his first love. He was building his career, perfecting his craft, and proving himself on the world's biggest stage. The emotional bandwidth required for marriage simply wasn't there. His 20s were defined by ambition, not domesticity. Kayla, by all accounts, gave him years of devotion. But devotion cannot create readiness. You can't love someone into wanting marriage if they're not there yet. And that was the painful truth underlying their story. She may have been loyal, loving, supportive, but Travis wasn't in that season of life. By the time Taylor entered the picture, things had shifted. Travis was no longer chasing validation in the same way. He had won Super Bowls, established his name, and matured into a man who could balance career with commitment. When he looked at Taylor, he didn't just see a partner. He saw timing that finally aligned. This dynamic struck a chord with countless people watching from the sidelines. Women, in particular, saw their own experiences mirrored in Kayla's. Many had invested years into relationships with men who later married someone else. It wasn't about being less than the new partner. It was about timing. He hadn't. You'd been ready then. He was ready now. Men, too, admitted that they recognized themselves in Travis. They confessed to prioritizing careers, freedom, or self-discovery before being open to marriage. Some even acknowledged that they regretted letting good partners go because they hadn't been ready to commit at the time. Podcasts, TikTok essays, and think pieces dissected this idea. One viral post read, "Men don't marry the woman of their dreams. They marry when they're ready, and whoever is there at that time becomes the one." It was both a comforting and devastating realization. Comforting because it lifted the burden of blame. Devastating because it made love feel subject to circumstance rather than destiny. Taylor's presence in Travis's life crystallized this truth. She hadn't been part of his long, formative years of struggle. She arrived when he was whole, stable, and open. That didn't diminish the love he felt for her. It simply highlighted how timing shapes the trajectory of relationships as much as love itself. In this light, the engagement became more than a celebrity headline. It became a case study, a living example of how relationships often hinge less on who we are with, and more on when we are with them. If there was one person the world was waiting to hear from, it was Kayla Nicole. For years, she had been more than just Travis Kelce's girlfriend. She had been a visible presence in his life, celebrated on red carpets, cheered on in stadiums, and admired for her independence and ambition. Now, with Travis's engagement to Taylor dominating global headlines, the silence from Kayla became deafening. But silence, in the age of social media, is never really silent. Her decision not to issue a formal statement, not to grant an interview, not to post a carefully worded note of congratulations or no comment, became a statement in itself. Instead, she carried on with her life, or at least the version of it that she chose to share with her millions of followers online. The most talked about example came with a workout video she posted just days after the engagement news broke. In it, Kayla moved through an intense fitness routine, her strength and control on full display. But it wasn't the workout that made headlines, it was the caption, the goal, a back that says, "Stop fucking playing with me." The internet erupted. For her supporters, it was a masterstroke, subtle, powerful, and dripping with confidence. A message that said, "I am unbothered, I am strong, I am still here." For critics, it was interpreted as shade, a passive-aggressive jab aimed squarely at her ex and his new fiancé. The truth may have been simpler. Kayla had always used her platform to promote strength, physical, emotional, and spiritual. But once you are tied to a celebrity narrative, every action is filtered through that lens. A caption about strength could no longer just be a caption about strength. It became a cultural text, dissected and debated by strangers who claimed to know her heart. And it didn't stop there. Every outfit she wore, every song snippet in her Instagram stories, every smile captured by paparazzi was read as either defiance or despair. Her autonomy was stolen by public imagination. Yet through it all, there was a quiet brilliance in how Kayla handled the storm. She did not feed the tabloids with dramatic soundbites. She did not weaponize her heartbreak for sympathy. Instead, she let her consistency, her work, her brand, her voice, remind people that she was more than an ex-girlfriend in a love triangle. For many women, Kayla became a symbol of dignity in the face of public rejection. She embodied the reality of what it means to lose not only a partner, but also the privacy to grieve in peace. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy, a way of reclaiming control in a world determined to write her story for her. In that sense, Kayla's response, or lack of response, became one of the most important parts of the engagement narrative. She reminded the world that sometimes the loudest statement you can make is to say nothing at all. As the weeks unfolded after the engagement announcement, one thing became increasingly clear. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's love story wasn't just personal anymore. It was a cultural event, one that blurred the line between private intimacy and global spectacle. Every time Taylor appeared in a stadium suite, the cameras found her. Her cheers, her laughter, even the way she leaned against the railing were broadcast across national television. Clips of her hugging Travis's mother or exchanging high fives with fans weren't just highlights. They became viral content, generating millions of views within hours. For Travis, the crossover into Taylor's world was equally dramatic. NFL fans were suddenly introduced to the universe of Swifties, a fan base legendary for its dedication and influence. Concert arenas filled with friendship bracelets now spilled over into football stadiums. It wasn't uncommon to see young girls wearing Chiefs jerseys with Kelce's number on the back, sitting alongside their parents who had come for the game but stayed for the spectacle of Taylor. It was synergy, but also chaos. The blending of these two worlds highlighted the power and the cost of fame. For some, their love story was magical. The ultimate fairy tale where two superstars found each other despite the demands of their careers. For others, it was overwhelming. A constant reminder that privacy for people of their stature was nearly impossible. And yet, Travis and Taylor chose silence in the face of noise. They gave no interviews, no dramatic speeches, no official responses to the endless speculation. Instead, they let their actions speak. He showed up at her concerts, standing in the VIP section like any other devoted fan. She embraced his football world, donning red and gold, braving freezing stadium nights to cheer him on. Their love wasn't presented through grand press releases. It was lived moment by moment in ways both ordinary and extraordinary. But the spotlight was unrelenting. Every hug became a headline. Every absence sparked rumors. If Taylor missed a game, whispers of trouble circulated. If Travis skipped a concert, think pieces questioned whether the magic was fading. Their relationship became a canvas onto which millions projected their own hopes, fears, and insecurities. And still, they carried on. Perhaps that was the most powerful part of their story, the refusal to let outside noise dictate the rhythm of their love. In a world obsessed with constant access, they drew invisible boundaries. They reminded people that even under the blinding glare of fame, love could still be tender, private, and real. Their relationship then became more than a romance. It became a phenomenon, a cultural bridge, a symbol of how love, even in its simplest form, can captivate when lived in the public eye. Not because it is perfect, but because it is unapologetically human. The engagement of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift was more than a headline-grabbing romance. It became a cultural mirror, reflecting back society's deepest questions about love, race, timing, and the nature of commitment. At its core, the story forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about how we view relationships. For many women, Kayla Nicole's chapter resonated as a painful reminder of giving years to someone who later chose someone else. Conversations unfolded online about emotional labor, about women holding men down through their struggles only to watch them marry another once they reached stability. Kayla's experience, amplified by her visibility, became a stand-in for countless untold stories. For others, the focus shifted to race and representation. Critics pointed out the recurring narrative of black women being seen as good enough to date, but not good enough to marry. Travis's choice of Taylor reignited those wounds, becoming a flashpoint for discussions that extended far beyond celebrity gossip. Whether fair or not, their engagement was used as a lens through which broader dynamics of loyalty, validation, and cultural hierarchy were analyzed. And then there was timing, the invisible force that shapes so many love stories. Supporters of Travis emphasized that love isn't just about who you're with, but when you're ready. His proposal to Taylor was framed not as a rejection of his past, but as evidence that maturity, personal growth, and readiness had finally aligned. For many, this sparked empathy rather than anger. They too had lived relationships where love alone wasn't enough because the timing was off. Beyond these debates, the engagement carried another layer of impact. It united two massive cultural spheres. The NFL, long dominated by a certain image of masculinity, collided with Taylor Swift's fanbase, predominantly young, female, and unapologetically expressive. What emerged was a new kind of fandom, one where football jerseys and friendship bracelets coexisted, challenging stereotypes about who belonged in which space. Economically, the effect was staggering. NFL games featuring Taylor in the stands saw spikes in viewership, with younger and more diverse audiences tuning in. Merchandise sales soared, blending pop culture with sports culture in unprecedented ways. Their relationship wasn't just love, it was an engine of influence, reshaping industries and expanding markets. But perhaps the most enduring lesson was this: love, when lived in the public eye, will always become a battleground for projection. People will see their own experiences in it, celebrate it, resent it, debate it. Travis and Taylor's engagement revealed that while fame amplifies everything, it also strips relationships down to their essence. At the heart of the noise, what remained was two people choosing each other despite the scrutiny. In that choice, they offered the world both a spectacle and a lesson. Love is fragile, love is political, love is shaped by timing, but above all, love is still love, no matter how many millions are watching. As the initial frenzy of the engagement began to settle, attention naturally shifted to the future. What comes next for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift? What will their love story look like in the years to come? And how will it shape not only their lives, but also the cultural landscape they now embody? For Taylor, marriage signals a new chapter in a life already defined by reinvention. She has written the soundtrack of a generation, transforming heartbreak into universal anthems and resilience into artistry. Yet the engagement introduces a different narrative arc, one less about loss and more about building something lasting. Fans speculate endlessly. Will her future albums reflect the joys of commitment rather than the pain of breakups? Could this shift in her artistry redefine what a Taylor Swift era looks like? For Travis, the future carries its own set of questions. At the peak of his NFL career, he already stands among the greatest tight ends in history, but whispers of retirement grow louder. With marriage on the horizon and the wear and tear of professional football taking its toll, will he step away from the game to embrace a new role? Partner, husband, and perhaps eventually, father. If so, how will his legacy be remembered? As the athlete who dominated the gridiron, or as the man who balanced football glory with personal fulfillment? Together, their future feels both promising and uncertain. The world anticipates a wedding that will undoubtedly be one of the most covered events of the decade, a union of music royalty and sports royalty. Beyond that, speculation ranges from joint philanthropic efforts to creative collaborations, to the possibility of stepping away from the spotlight altogether to build a family in privacy. But perhaps what makes their story so compelling is not what is certain, but what remains unknown. In a culture obsessed with predictions, Travis and Taylor remind us that love cannot be scripted. They may face challenges, the pressures of fame, the demands of travel, the intrusion of constant scrutiny. Yet the resilience they've shown so far suggests they have the strength to navigate whatever lies ahead. Their legacy, then, is already bigger than rings, touchdowns, or chart-topping hits. It is about balance, the balance of ambition and intimacy, of individual identity and shared partnership, of public spectacle and private truth. They represent the possibility that two extraordinary careers can converge without eclipsing one another, that love can thrive not in spite of fame, but alongside it. In the end, the future of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift isn't just about what they'll achieve as individuals, but about what they'll symbolize together. For some, they will always be a fairy tale. For others, a case study in timing and cultural dynamics. But for millions, they will be a reminder that even under the brightest lights, love remains deeply, profoundly human, and that, perhaps, is their greatest legacy of all.